are you guys doing today?
Great.
As promised, we are going to talk about negative aspects of sport and exercise. And this is kind of the culmination of all of the things that you have gotten throughout this class. Because really when we talk about, all of the things that you got from anatomy and all of the things that you got from sports psych, there's a lot of overlap. So this one really takes into consideration a lot of the things that even we discussed, we touched on just a little bit in anatomy, but we're going just a little bit further in depth in terms of the psychological components of maybe why people drop out, or some of the psychological stressors that people go through in terms of eating disorders, exercise dependence, muscle dysmorphia, and obviously burnout and exercise. So, take a look at the picture. What do you guys see?
We on the left and you on the right.
This is yes, as a matter of fact, I specifically chose your photo, and I'm like, you know what? Gosh, how did they take Tim's body and they just manipulated his head? So one of the things that we recognized first and foremost, and we talked about this also too in anatomy, is anabolic steroid use. Okay, so remember that the body. Do you guys remember first off what steroids were for? What the bottom line was with steroids?
Make you bigger.
Well, yeah, that's the anabolic steroid use. But do you remember what steroids? I mean, steroids in and of themselves aren't bad. Do you guys remember what steroids were used for?
Muscle rebuilding.
Muscle rebuilding, muscle recovery,
Faster.
and faster muscle rebuilding. Really, it was to reduce inflammation. So we recognize that not all steroids are bad. But here's the thing: is that when people are using anabolic steroids, one of the main goals is that they're trying to increase muscle mass. Okay, so increased body weight and mass is definitely one of the bigger ones. Altered body composition. So you see guys who go from being this big to being, except that they have tiny little legs because they never work on them. Increased muscle size and strength, increased blood volume, and increased number of muscular cells. So here's the thing. Do you guys remember when we talked about anatomy, what happens to the heart? Right. The heart is going to work at its strongest capacity at any given time. But the heart is also a muscle. So what's basically happening to the heart when you're taking anabolic steroids is it's also getting bigger. Well, it can be good if you're strengthening it, doing cardiovascular work, or you're doing anything else. But we want the muscle to get stronger. We don't want it to necessarily get bigger. So do you know one of the adverse effects of somebody who's taking anabolic steroids and they're working out all the time in the gym? You know what can happen to people?
Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. Boom. You do not pass go. You do not collect $200. That is it. We have seen lots of examples of people having heart attacks in the gym where basically the heart just stops. That's it. Or they just keel right over. Because again, one of the things that we recognize about these individuals is that they're pushing themselves too hard, too far, too fast. The body requires muscle recovery, just like it requires, work. So here's the thing is that one of the other things that we know about anabolic steroids is that while it increases certain things, there are also some side effects. Just a few, okay? You guys know who this is, right? Yeah. This is what he looks like now. I mean, have you seen pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger in the past couple of years? This is because he did so much to his body to get it from this point that now this is it. With anabolic steroids, you never go back to the same way. Do you guys know why? We talked about this a little bit in anatomy too.
Everything slows down.
Everything slows down in Steve.
Your body has things.
Yes. Your body starts to understand things on a certain level, okay? If we're eating the right kinds of things, we're getting the right kinds of nutrition, our body understands that, and it starts to adapt to that. But if we set the bar so high with anabolic steroid use, our body's never going to be able to naturally achieve that, and therefore it's never going to be able to go back. So one of the things we recognize is, yes, possible undesirable sex-specific effects, like, for example, just a little bit scary. Just a little bit scary. The other thing, too, is that we notice that body acne occurs. Your body is trying to get rid of toxins in the body. So your body is trying to push everything out of every single pore that it possibly can. The other thing, too, for guys, a couple of things to keep in mind is, sorry, guys, but you might develop man boobs. And nobody wants man boobs. No, sorry about that, guys. With women, it's the opposite. Okay? All things that are genetically predisposed for the process of birth, those go away. Okay? The other thing, too, is that the ability to reproduce tends to shrink, if you get my drift. Yeah, so here's the thing, is on the one hand you're like, yes, I'm gonna look amazing for 5 minutes while I'm taking these, but at the same time, it is really, I mean, is it worth it in the end? If you really are not able to do certain things. I don't know, that's kind of one of those questions that, I mean, it's up to you. Is it appearance or is it something else? So, anyway, keep these things in mind when you're thinking about anabolic steroid use. The other thing, too, that we recognize about anabolic steroid use is that there are high levels of regression, okay? One of the things that I always laughed about when I was at the gym is that you see these guys and they're like, hurrah, you know, I mean, just throwing weights around, you know. I mean, it's the 5-pound weights that they grunt and, you know, start lifting. But they are grunting, they are throwing weights around. They're kind of just generally angry. What we also noticed, too, is that we've seen cases of this. There was he was an Olympic athlete. Oh gosh, now I can't remember his name. He was. No, he was the first one to run with the shark fin. Pistorius, thank you very much. One of the things that we realized is that, I mean, he really brought himself to fame because he was one of those first individuals to actually run with some kind of prosthetic. Not really too much longer after that. I mean, maybe a month or so after that, we recognized that do you guys remember what he did?
Yeah, he shot his girlfriend.
Yeah, he killed his girlfriend. And one of the things that he blamed it on was anabolic steroid usage, okay, and steroid usage in his system. So on the one hand, we have people who are doing this to try to get that edge. And we talked about, again, with the Major League Baseball players, that they're trying to get that edge. Everybody's trying to get that edge. But what people don't realize is that this, I mean, sometimes can have some consequences that are associated with it. So again, just something to think about. We also recognize with sometimes taking things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be steroids, okay? It can be any of the other drugs that we talked about in some of the previous lectures, okay? Either depressants or stimulants. But one of the things that we recognize is that there's kind of this psychological expectancy effect. It's the idea of, okay, if I take this, am I going to run faster, jump higher, be better, be faster, whatever it is, okay? Now, in some cases, it's a placebo effect. If I take something, I mean, do you remember when you were younger and you got like the awesome pair of shoes? You're like, yes, I'm going to run faster on the playground. This is it. But at the same time, it was a placebo effect. It was just the psychological idea of, okay, now that I have this awesome pair of shoes, I'm going to be better. So the same thing happens to us as adults. If we think that we're going to be taking something that is going to potentially give us that edge, is it really the thing that's giving us the edge or our belief in it? What do you think? Yeah. In some cases, it's belief. I mean, we've done countless studies where we give people a placebo pill, a sugar pill, where it does nothing. And we give somebody something that maybe does a little bit of something. And we notice very similar effects in both populations. It's really the idea that, okay, if I take this, yeah, I'm going to run faster, jump higher, all of those things. I'm going to become Superman. This is where it can become dangerous, too. Because people are also willing to take things that they might not be willing to take in any other situation. Or they might think that it will give them that edge, but they don't really realize what's in it. So that's where the danger comes in as well. So when we discuss the idea of Major League Baseball, and we kind of touched on this just a little bit, what I really love about this is that this is a professional organization that has really made the attempt to try to get rid of steroid usage or illegal drug usage in this professional sport. So they've taken really severe penalties out on players who have anything in their system, and lots of unannounced testing. But here's the thing, and here's where the danger comes in, is that we also recognize that some of these professional agencies have little ties elsewhere. That maybe they're being paid under the table. Maybe they're in somebody's pocket that we don't even realize. So that when these reports come out, they're not entirely accurate. Because, again, you have somebody who is doctoring the reports. Or you have somebody who's maybe not doing the right kind of testing, or not testing for the right things on certain players. Maybe if they're suspected of taking X, they're testing Y. So never the twain shall meet. So what we've actually started to do in the last couple of years is individuals who have been indicted for, drug paraphernalia or usage, or even the production of certain drugs, we're actually working with them. Government agencies are starting to work with them. And what this is helping us do is it's helping us get ahead of the curve. Because the realistic aspect of it is, once we test for something, because we have standards, right? I mean, governmental standards. We have to go through a process of testing for things and going through kind of the rigmarole. But by the time we get to that point, these people who created it are miles and miles ahead of the game. So you're testing for something that's probably out of somebody's system or we're not using anyways. So this is helping us get more and more ahead of the game. What do you guys think about this? I mean, what do you guys think about steroid usage as a general rule?
It should be 100% allowed.
And there are two different sides of this. And so, Tim, I like that. Okay, should it be allowed or shouldn't it be allowed?
I want to go to a baseball game and have the score be 20 to 40. I want to see a home run every hit. I don't want to so long game. It's not baseball.
Then it no longer becomes baseball. What do we look at baseball as? What do we think about the national pastime of baseball? Okay, and you bring up a point. What would you rather watch then?
Oh, football or tennis,
Or soccer? Why? Because it's more exciting. Yes.
Whoa, soccer's not exciting.
And we talked. Everybody has their own opinion. Everybody has their own idea of sport. But I think what we talked about is that, and what Sherry said is that it kind of hits the nail on the head in an odd way. We want to see things that are exciting. And I think in a way, that's what Tim is saying. He wants to see things that are more exciting. So, okay, let's take out this ruling of anabolic steroids. Let's just let everybody use steroids, right? Why not? Everybody's using them anyways. Why don't we just let them? Why not? Steve, go ahead. Say that one more time?
No, were you asking a question?
Yes. Why don't we just let everybody do it then?
Would that create more of a liability with the company?
It absolutely would. Absolutely. So, for example, all of the healthcare industry would have to now prepare not just for normal health effects, but for health effects based off of anabolic steroid usage. Okay? The other thing, too, is where do we draw the line then? It's not natural. I mean, oh, go ahead. Say it one more time.
I said that people's arms are exploding on the field.
Right, exactly. Yeah. If I have a limb coming off because I've worked it out too much, that might be bad. So, sure, where do we draw this line? And when we talk back to youth sports, I mean, if we think about kids who are being recruited for college sports, where do they get recruited? In high school. I mean, there are some magnet schools, and don't get me started on my soapbox with magnet schools. But yes, okay, so now they're being recruited in high school, all right? What if we bring that line down? Now we're just letting everybody take steroids. Where do we draw the line? Okay, so I'm going to give little Johnny, my 12-year-old son, I'm going to give him steroids because I want him to have that competitive edge in middle school so that by the time he hits high school, he's going to be fine.
You know how sweet of a Little League game that'd be, though?
Little Johnny, oh, yeah.
12-year-old kids taking each other's heads off and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine from home plate to, the pitcher's mound, it's this far off? Yeah. Everybody would have to wear, cage masks, yeah. So, again, it's a matter of ethics. Where do we draw the line? Because, it could be argued, fine, if everybody's taking them, why don't we regulate it? Why don't we say, okay, we're going to let you take anabolic steroids to a level, to a degree. But then are all of our stadiums going to become like coliseums where we're now going to have to build them twice as big, twice as long? Because now it's basically one step away from putting people into a big ring with a couple of lions because that's where we're going to start building that population. Sure, I can see the arguments on both sides.
Exactly real.
Yeah. We can see the argument on both sides. So, anyways, it's not going to be one of those questions that's going to be solved right away. We recognize the inherent dangers of it, but where do we draw the line? So, we also understand that there are certain things that athletes take that kind of fall in between. So, stimulants and depressants, not all of these things are illegal. Diuretics, hallucinogens, creatine, which we'll talk about. We've talked about also in anatomy, and dietary substances. So, start talking just a little bit about stimulants. Amphetamines and cocaine, they increase the rate and work capacity of the central nervous system. Basically, in other words, they make your heart beat faster, they make you a little more focused. That doesn't sound all bad, right? Okay, I'm getting amped up, I'm getting ready, I'm tying in my focus just a little bit more, okay? Where many of these are illegal, not all of them are, okay? So, coffee is a stimulant, all right? All of our Red Bull energy drinks, I've been just as guilty of doing a sugar-free Red Bull in the morning when I don't have access to coffee. Okay? Are they good for the body, though?
No.
No. Well, we talked about this pretty significantly with anatomy. I think a couple of you guys even brought up, maybe it was in this class, maybe it was the previous one, that actually talked about, and they actually had a couple of slides in their anatomy presentation about the dangers of actually taking too many sports drinks or too many of those energy drinks, which was a good thing. So the other thing too, coffee. Coffee's not bad for you. I drink a couple of cups of coffee all the time. If you take it with white willow bark, it's actually really good before a workout because it actually allows the body to have a little bit of bright energy so that you're able to work out a little bit harder, a little bit faster. Okay? But what if I'm taking coffee with my sports drinks and I'm chasing with all of the other things that are on the shelves out there at the GNC?
We like to do heart pumping out of the chest.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember when we talked about that hammer effect with nutrition? When our bodies are eating good things, we have this, the normal nominal effect, okay? But when we eat terrible things, our body is going through this jackhammer effect. Same thing happens when we put things in our body that aren't good for us. We now have this jackhammer effect. Can we last long if our body is constantly going through that? No, we can't. Same thing happens, and tying it back into anabolic steroid use. This is part of the reason why people are falling down, dropping dead in the gym. It's not just because they're taking the anabolic steroids. A lot of times, they're chasing it with things that they probably shouldn't be. Their heart is beating out of their chest. Their bodies can't take it. They can't take the work. And so as a result, that's it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Pink mist. Depressants, on the other hand, and we've had some funny conversations about the usage of depressants. Again, not all are illegal, okay? For example, alcohol, it's not illegal, but sometimes people use it, and they abuse it, they overuse it. It becomes a crutch, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to have a glass of wine with dinner. Then it becomes, oh, I'm going to have a bottle because I'm not having a good day today. And that can be dangerous, okay? So here are the things that with depressants, sedatives, all of those things, they're thought to relieve tension and depression and anxiety. It's because we believe in it, okay? We believe that all of these things are going to help us. So they're highly addictive, but the consequences are significant, all right? I've known people who have used alcohol for so long that if you were to ask them how old they were, you'd be shocked. You ever look at those people and you go, whoa, you're 30 years old and you don't look anywhere near 30 years old. And that's a scary thing to think of. And that's a scary thing to think of.
It's okay. It's okay.
Me, you look very young. I'm not going to let you beat you. So, Marley, I'm going to miss you. I just want to pick that up. So yes, one of the things that we do recognize is that people use these too often, all right? But the other thing too is that with depressants, just like sedatives, is that you have individuals who are going to take the sedatives to come up, and then they have to take a sedative or a depressant to come down, okay? I know some wonderful people who don't use any of the illegal concoctions, but they just have such a stressful job that they are taking coffee until almost 4 in the afternoon just to keep themselves going. And then they come home and have a couple of glasses of wine to decompress. And the cycle keeps going. Your body's not going to be able to sustain that for a long period of time. Your body's not going to be able to sustain that for a long period of time. Diuretics are a kind of a weird one, and they're kind of the in-between. There was, when I was at the club, there was a woman who, she took water pills, and she would also come in, do you guys remember that they used to make them, they probably still do, I haven't seen them in years. They almost look like big plastic bags. They're like plastic suits.
Sauna suits.
Yeah, yes, the sweat suits, like the sauna suits.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if they still make them. Like I said, I haven't looked for them in years. I'm sure that they probably do because people are probably ignorant enough to buy them. Diuretics basically reduce body weight. I mean, I would see this woman come into the fitness center. She would wear the sauna suit. She would walk on the treadmill. And I knew she had taken pills. And then she would go sit in the sauna after she had taken the sauna suit off. And she would go sit in the sauna. Right. Because what's going to happen to you if you don't have enough fluid in your body? Again, this is a do not pass go, do not collect $200 kind of scenario. If you don't have enough fluid in your body is going to shut down. You're going to pass out. Okay? I remember one time, and it was the scariest thing ever. I was really young. I had been so sick. I had the flu so badly, my mom just couldn't get enough fluids in me. Like every time I would sip something, I mean, it just felt like every other moment I was throwing up. You know how you get that relief after you throw up, like momentary? Oh no, I didn't have any of that. It was just so bad. And I remember I looked at my mom one time and I'm like, I don't, like my vision's getting blurry, like I was freaking out. And when you're little, you don't know what that feels like. But I didn't realize I was so dehydrated, I was like on that verge of passing out. That's a scary feeling for a little kid. I can't imagine what it would be like as an adult to feel like you're going to be on that edge of passing out. I don't like throwing up anyways, so I can't even imagine being that low on fluids. Not my thing. I remember talking to you guys about my buddy Mike in anatomy. You guys remember Mike, right? Example of Mike. He was the mascot of the gym. Super sweet guy, but he fell into the category of an exercise addict. He was definitely guilty of exercise dependence. And this is, when we talk about this is the psychological component where these individuals need to work out. They have this psychological component that it is an obsession, and they have to satisfy it in some way, shape, or form. Well, what happened with Mike, and here's where the danger component came in, is that Mike would go to work. He would pack his gym bag in the morning. He would go right from work to the gym. He would take every single class that was available, and sometimes that meant 2 or 3 classes, and then he'd work out for an hour or 2 afterwards. He brought extra shirts because he would sweat through them. Now, would he eat? Yeah. He'd go to the smoothie bar, get a couple of scoops of protein. He would eat something. But he never gave his body a day of recovery. Now, one time, in the time that I knew him from when I was teaching at this particular gym, in 2 years, do I ever remember him taking a break? Unless he was really, really sick. And I even remember a time when he came in and he's sniffling and he's gross. And I'm like, dude, don't hug me because you're going to give me whatever bunga you've got. So don't hug me. But he did. I mean, he looked horrible. And that was a really sad thing because you knew when you talked to him, sweet, sweet guy. But there was a psychological component there. There was an obsession that he couldn't counter. Okay. One of the things that we recognize in terms of some other ways of addressing this, exercise addict, obligatory runner, supered here, I mean the list goes on, but they basically all mean the same thing. Somebody who is in obsession and somebody whose need to work out supersedes everything else. And these individuals can risk injury. They can risk a lot going on in their body. What happens when you don't recover, guys? Your muscles can't recover, but what else can happen? You're breaking down your muscle. He could have had twice as many gains in half as much time. I mean, really, twice as many gains, half as much time. I mean, it makes sense to us, right? We've talked about this before. You guys did a project on it. But for some people, again, it's the psychological component. It is a need to satisfy it over and above everything else. So we recognize that there are certain things that fall into this category. Tolerance. Okay? Obviously, we know that if you are working out consistently over a period of time, your body's going to get used to the workout, right? Do you guys remember the span of time that an average individual kind of hits a plateau in terms of weeks? 4 to 6 weeks. Nailed it. Yes, 4 to 6 weeks. Okay? For somebody who's been working out so much over and over again, their body might hit that a little bit sooner. Okay? That tolerance is going to increase. We might notice that they might withdraw from people. But one of the sad things about Mike is that there would be several times that I would be teaching class, because I taught kickboxing there, that we'd say, hey, I mean, it's early, let's go grab some dinner, because it was downtown Orlando. We could walk to wherever. Oh, no, I still have, an hour at the gym. I have to work. I'm sorry, guys. Even on the weekends, all right? We'll have a week plan. Like Saturday, we'll come in on, we'll all go work out, and let's go to like brunch. No, I don't know if I can do that. So he pulls away, slowly starting to withdraw. You go beyond your intentions. You might tell yourself you're only going to work out for an hour, and yet you go for an hour and a half or 2 hours. No, I just don't feel like that set was good enough. I just don't feel like that was enough. And you keep going, and you keep pushing yourself. And I've seen people like this. Do you ever go to the gym and you just look at somebody's face and they're just not happy with anything that they've done? Yeah. This is that face. I can see it. Okay? Loss of control, excessive amount of time. You can't control the amount of exercise. You spend way too much time exercising. Work conflicts. I remember a couple of times that he was talking about doing like a half day on Saturday. And so he would come to the gym during his lunch hour and then he would head back. He could not leave until he got in a solid 45 minutes. So if somebody stopped him to talk to him, he would go back late to work because he needed to get in 45 minutes of time. It is. And again, we think about it sometimes from the outside looking in. But that's crazy behavior, right? Somebody who does that, that's an obsession. He can't control it. He can't control it. Can't control it. And then, of course, we talked about continuing to exercise when sick. How are you guys doing so far on all of that? So far, so good? I mean, I know I talked about Mike before, but again, just repeating it. And a sad case, really nice guy. I mean, I wish I still had his information, that I could, touch base with him, see how he's doing, see if he's okay. Because, again, really nice guy. So hopefully he was able to recognize it, maybe get some help. We're going to go ahead and jump gears just a little bit, talk about some more of the psychological disorders, anorexia, bulimia, and then, again, certain other diagnoses that sometimes don't pop up. But, yes, anorexia. This was the look. This was the model look several years ago. In some cases, it still is, yeah, absolutely. You want to look like a waif, and that was apparently supposed to be the big seller. Yeah, can you imagine that? I mean, that's terrifying if you look at that. Okay? What we recognize about anorexia, severe weight loss. Severe weight loss. Refusal to maintain a normal body weight, and one of the things that I want you guys to make sure that you guys are writing down is it is an intense fear of becoming fat. It is an intense fear of becoming fat. I mean, it is so terrifying. Did you guys ever watch the show Glee?
Hell yeah.
Okay. If you watched Glee, or at least you've heard about it, or maybe somebody in your circle watched Glee, they brought up a lot of very interesting, legitimate issues, and one of the things that they brought up was the idea of anorexia and bulimia. And one of the cheerleaders on the show said, yeah, when I feel like I'm just about to pass out because she hadn't eaten anything, I eat a cube of cheese. Yeah, and that's a legitimate thing that somebody would say. I'm going to eat just enough to exist. I'm going to eat just enough to exist. Sometimes, too, if you look at the last bullet point, is that for women, you have an absence of a menstrual cycle, all right? Our bodies are an amazing machine. You've heard me say that 1,000,001 times. But the other thing that's really amazing about our bodies is that women are designed partly to give birth. So our bodies will recognize if we're not capable of adequately adapting for that function. So if we're not able to have kids, in other words, our body's not going to give us the ability to. I mean, our body's an amazing machine for a reason. I want you guys to just take a look at this video. You guys know who this is, right? Or maybe recognize? This is Portia de Rossi. She is married to Ellen DeGeneres, funny comedian. Okay. And when she got her start initially, she was harboring a lot of secrets. One was the fact that she was a lesbian. The other was that, again, in this industry, what was the expectation in Hollywood, and really still is?
20 pounds.
Yeah, that you look this big around. I don't know if you know that a lot of Hollywood movie stars, way back in like the Hollywood heyday, had ribs removed to become smaller, to fit into costume. So the idea of that kind of still perpetuates. So I want you guys to take a look at this.
Actress Portia de Rossi is poised, glamorous, and half of one of the most celebrated couples in history. When she married Ellen DeGeneres in 2008, Portia was the picture
Sorry, I'm trying to make that bigger.
actress Portia de Rossi is Peel.
Gorgeous, bright, and talented, she was the woman men wanted and women wanted to be.
She's smart and she's pretty, Georgia. What else do we need to know?
The press said she oozed sex appeal. Rolling Stone branded her a hot bombshell. But behind the glossy covers and red carpet spotlight, Portia was terrified. Tabloids would expose the truth. She was a lesbian. And there was another secret. This one would nearly kill her. Portia was obsessed with being thin, binging, purging, then secretly starving herself. By early 2000, Portia weighed a shocking 82 pounds.
Portia is here for her first television interview about her new book, Unbearable Lightness, a story of loss and gain. She says the book's for anybody who's ever struggled with their body image. Welcome, Portia de Rossi. What a, may I say, poignant, thoughtful, provocative, and searing book you did here.
Thank you so much.
Really, it must have been really cathartic for you to.
Yeah.
It is its own purging, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It was very cathartic for me to write. It was difficult for me to write, definitely. There were a lot of tears shed on that keyboard.
It's so interesting because when people are looking at you, particularly on a sitcom or a drama or in a movie, there's always this impression, or on a red carpet in particular, the whole point of it is to make people think that your life is one way.
Well, who I really was, gay, starving myself, I could never admit to anybody. So I really had to create a character of what I thought would be acceptable, and it led to me being very isolated and very sick.
So I just want to tell you this book is for anybody who's ever struggled with weight in any form, but it is really pretty graphic. I'm going to ask you to read from page 49 and describe what happened after your first day on the set of Ally McBeal.
I actually wrote that at the end of my first day, I had this hole in my gut that no amount of food seemed to fill. And just from a very deep-seated insecurity. Anyway, my brother had agreed to meet me in a Mexican restaurant, and I ate practically everything on the menu. So here's what happened after that. I started by eating a large bag of Cheetos. The bright orange color would serve as a marker during the purge. It would be a map, almost, telling me how far I'd come and how much further I needed to go. When I saw orange vomit cascading from my mouth and flowing in chunks between the two rigid fingers jammed against my gag reflex, I'd know I'd passed 7-Eleven, and then I'd make my way back to the restaurant and back through each course, beginning with the corn chips, the enchiladas, and ending with the nachos. I barely swallowed the last item, the Snickers bar, before I began regurgitating it. I shoved my fingers down my throat and threw open the plastic bag 5 times before I was satisfied that I'd gotten most of the food out. I took off my t-shirt from underneath my sweater and wiped my face and hands on it. I found a trash can. I drove home.
And that was your first day?
Yeah.
And after these, this binging and then the purging of it, would you feel guilt, shame?
I hated binging. Binging momentarily gave me the relief because I'd been starving, really. Psychologically, I just wanted to fill the void. But the purging made me feel more pathetic than just having failed yet another diet. Yeah.
And what is so searing about it is the intensity with which every day you and so many other millions of girls who are watching right now would attack this whole idea of trying to lose weight and burning calories and exercising. Page 7, you say, as I slip out of bed and do deep lunges across the floor to the bathroom, I promise myself to cut my calorie intake in half to 150 calories for the day and to take 20 laxatives. That should do something to help, but it's not the weight gain from the 6 ounces of yogurt that worries me, because you had 6 ounces of yogurt. It's the loss of self-control. It's the fear that maybe I've lost it for good. I start sobbing now as I lunge my way across the floor, and I wonder how many calories I'm burning by sobbing and lunging. It's got to be at least 30 calories. So you think that even crying burns calories? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to write this book from the perspective of the sick person.
Yeah.
I thought it was so important to be so honest and to go so deeply
into the crazy part.
Yeah, into the crazy part. Even though I was kind of afraid to do it because I thought maybe everyone would think that I'm nuts. But I think it's really valuable because there is a point where a diet becomes a disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a gradual thing. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought that I was just being healthy.
And that you were showing discipline and restraint, and this is what you needed to do to be an actress.
Absolutely.
This is part of the sacrifice.
Exactly. I was being professional. I was fitting into my wardrobe from week to week. And I really thought that that's exactly what I needed to do to kind of feel deserving of all the money all of a sudden I was getting and all the attention.
When did it start for you?
It started with my first diet when I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a diet. I started modeling that year. I would diet to do the job. I'd finish the job, and then I would reward myself with food. And then I'd have a few days to get the weight off before I did the next job. But as the jobs got booked back to back, I had to get the weight off faster. So I used laxatives, I used diuretics, and then when that didn't work, I was forced to purge, to throw up.
We'll have more with Portia and the unbearable lightness in a moment.
What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that?
Do anything for fame.
Yeah, I think the inherent danger in all of that is that we see this. We see this a lot in individuals. I mean, did you catch what she said about her first diet? 12 years old. So, in a way, let's jump back to our conversation about anabolic steroids. Is where do we draw that line? Where do we say, okay, if we're going to let everybody start doing this, do we say, okay, little Johnny, no problem, you can start taking anabolic steroids at 12 years old because you're going to start prepping for sports in middle school and in high school, right? But yet at the same time, is there a different standard with women?
I just, at 12 years old, I mean, isn't that something that was like instilled in her, or was it just that she was watching TV, television, and she picked it up from dad, or, I mean, to be that severe
Right.
at 12 years old, where did it come from?
It's a great question. I mean, it could be a little bit of both. I mean, she said that she was doing modeling at 12 years old. Was that something that she wanted to do, or was that maybe something that her parents wanted to do? Go ahead.
Probably modeling had to maintain a certain weight, so she tried not to lose weight.
Right, stabilize it. And I think going back to around your question, we don't know where it came from. I mean, I think for women, there is this body dysmorphia where we, as females, kind of project out this image younger and younger. And when you go places and you look at magazines and you see models, there's a particular standard. And yet at the same time, I mean, if you look at the fact that she was doing modeling, it could have been also instilled from parents. I don't know that much. That's a really good question. I'll have to look into it.
I'm not saying it's directly from her,
Good.
but I would say in young kids, if you grow up with a family that has diabetes, high blood pressure, and as a child you're kind of overweight, when you go to the doctor, they're going to advise you to be careful. In the future, you might be in this.
Sure.
And that could be.
Absolutely. It could almost go in the other direction. I mean, when you're told, okay, you have to be so careful because there might be a genetic predisposition in your family, sure, you might go so far on the other end of things. So that's a good question and a good point to be taken. She definitely exhibited both signs. Okay, she was anorexic. It was an inability to want to gain weight, or she perceived herself as being fat at all times. But there's also this feeling of bulimia in there because she was doing the binging and purging. Now, the only difference really that we notice between individuals who are anorexic and individuals who are bulimic is that sometimes bulimic individuals might be a little bit more on the normal weight side. Do you guys know why? What do you do?
Your body does absorb some of it.
Correct, absolutely. Yeah, your body does take some of it in. So that's one of those significant things that we do recognize, that your body does absorb some things. And like we've talked about in anatomy, if you're eating certain foods, certain nutrients, and your body thinks that it's going to be starving itself, it's going to take in whatever you are taking, it's going to store it as fast as it possibly can because it doesn't know when it's going to get any kind of nutrients anytime soon. We do notice, however, that with both the crossover is a loss of self-control. It is a huge loss of self-control. This feeling that sometimes, and again, good question, we don't know where it comes from. Is it the image that kind of is pervasive in our society now? Is it inherent? One of the sad things that I remember about being at the club, I taught swim team for quite a few years, and there were parents that would be out there, and we were kind of glorified babysitters. I mean, that was really it for that summer period of time. I mean, even really any time during the summer. Parents would go to the pool, and they would order a little tiny salad with nothing on it. And so you have this image of your parents doing this. And I remember a couple of parents who, the kids would be, wanting to order chicken fingers and fries or whatever, normal kid food. And I would hear the parents going, oh, honey, you don't want to get that. Oh, honey, you don't want to eat that. That's not good for you. And not that it wasn't good for you, there would be that kind of insidious way of saying it that it's, oh no, honey, that's going to make you fat. Or that's going to, oh, you're, I mean, this is, right. Instead, why don't you get a salad? And then they would order for their child. Well, she'll take a fruit cup and a salad. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those really scary things that we happen to notice. Go ahead and take a quick break, and we'll come back.